All right, welcome to this group conversation about the Meltano project. I am Douwe and I lead the project at GitLab. I put a link to some slides in the document that you might want to check out if you want to know what's been going on the Meltano project over the last month or so. 3 weeks ago, we announced a new strategy and direction for the project, and you'll see in the slides that the response has been really positive. So yeah, if you have any questions about what that means, then please go ahead and put them in the doc. I see that Emily has already put a question in. Emily, would you like to verbalize it?
Me too. Thanks, Douwe. Thanks for the slides. Lots of really exciting, good news there, which is awesome to see. I know that one of the KPIs you talked about in your last group conversation was getting contributors. How's that going? I know you linked to the Epic, but have you seen an uptick?
Yeah, so great question. Thank you. Yeah, so last group conversation, I talked about some of the specific, like you said, KPIs that we wanted to increase. The first focus for me was really just getting people to start using Meltano and giving us feedback on how it really compares to other tools out there. And on that front, the response has been really amazing. As you'll see in the slides, the Slack community has kind of exploded in activity relative to where it was before the announcement. And there have been a bunch of issues filed and some really great discussion around, what does this project need to do so that people can actually start deploying it in production. In terms of actual contributions to Meltano, which can take various shapes. On the one hand, of course, we have the actual Meltano tool with its CLI and its UI, but then there's also, of course, the documentation, and there's the fact that Meltano in theory supports all of the extractors and loaders that are Singer compatible, but we also have our kind of internal list of taps and targets, Singer taps and targets that are known to work with Meltano. And that is also a list that we would love to get more contribution to, because all of the existing Singer taps and targets out there, in theory, they should work with Meltano, but Meltano needs a little bit of extra metadata about exactly how they work and how they are supposed to be configured before Meltano is actually able to run them. So those are kind of the three fronts on which I would love to see more contribution. We haven't seen a big uptick there, unfortunately, and I think that has to do with a couple of things. First of all, when people started trying out Meltano immediately after our, the blog post and the announcement we put out, what they found is that you can actually already use it to run pipelines locally, which means that on that front, not too much contribution was actually needed to the application because it already served the purpose. The big kind of unanswered question at this point is, like, how do you deploy a Meltano pipeline into production? And that is where we would want to see more, collaboration with the community. But until that question is answered, until people feel like this is not just a toy project they can try out on an afternoon, but actually something they want to contribute to and make it better, what I've kind of seen is that a lot of people are happy to try it out and give feedback at this stage. But until that production question is answered, a lot of them are still, kind of going back to the tools they were using right now and not necessarily putting time in here. In part because, of course, they're seeing that every time they raise something, I'm basically coming back and saying, like, yes, this is already on the roadmap for next week, or I'm planning to work on this then and then, or hey, there's this issue, please put in your thoughts if you have anything to add. So people might also, for good reason, kind of have the idea that most of the high priority things to do with making Meltano production ready are already on my radar, and I'm able to get to them faster than contributors would be at this point, of course, because I'm completely read up on the code base and all these various things. But what I expect to see is that once that production deployment story is a little bit more clear, people will be actually able to run this in production, and then they'll start asking for, okay, what do I want next in order to make this more reliable, robust, etc. And that's kind of what we're seeing with the RFA collaboration that you pointed out as well. RFA is an organization that offers IT consultancy service to financial industry, financial services companies in the financial services industry, and they offer their own data tooling, their own data stack to these companies. And they are seeing that I am going so fast on kind of implementing all of this feedback related to Meltano's production readiness that they are already kind of getting ahead of me and deciding to start contributing to the UI data pipeline management aspect of Meltano, which I was thinking wouldn't be a priority for a couple months. So from that perspective, I'm really glad to see contribution on the thing that isn't actually my priority right now. Of course, that's exactly where you want to see the contribution. And that is great. And we've also had a couple of people who have been contributing to documentation when they came across errors there, or who have been contributing through just lots and lots and lots of feedback and giving feedback on proposals and ideas that I have, which I'm also seeing as a form of contribution. The part where I would really love to see more contribution, just to make Meltano more useful to users from the get-go, is to that aspect of which Singer taps and targets are known to be supported by Meltano out of the box. And that is really something that starts with people trying out Meltano with a tap or target that they might already have been using. In this context, a tap or target means either a script that you use to extract data out of a data source, like a SaaS API, and then the target or the loader is the script that loads it into a data warehouse or other file format. So what we've seen is that people are actually trying out Meltano with custom taps and targets that aren't known to work yet. But what I'm thinking is that since they can't actually get to the stage where they deploy it into production, they aren't yet motivated to actually take that next step and contribute the resources to the Meltano project that would also make that step or target work out of the box for future users. So and part of that is also, and that's also what you saw in the encourage contribution epic that I created. I also recognize that our contributing documentation right now, which hasn't changed much since before the announcement, is still pretty catered towards contributing to the actual UI front-end code base or the back-end code base of the CLI. And it doesn't really have a great explanation for how you actually go about adding taps and targets to Meltano, making them known. So one of the things in that epic that I want to work on is making it much easier for people to do that particular kind of contribution, because it's potentially the most impactful right now as far as the first user experience of Meltano is concerned. But I think people won't really be motivated to take that step until they have actually themselves been able to deploy their pipeline into production. So what I'm hoping, and what is definitely kind of also informed by the feedback I've been getting, is that the next thing I want to, the thing I'm currently focusing on is getting that deployment story to be really clear and easy. And then my next focus will be making it really easy for people who have actually reached that milestone to then also go and contribute back whatever custom taps or targets they needed to install into Meltano to make that work. But the Meltano community of, a community together maintaining these this Meltano list of known to work extractors and loaders, that community won't really exist until people are actually able to run this in production. Well, right now it's mostly been people giving it a try, giving us some feedback, and then mostly dropping off. Although there have been a handful of people, 5 or so, who seem super motivated to actually, see this through and make it work. So they've been giving the most feedback. They've been saying like, oh yeah, I'll add that to the documentation when I get to it, or I'm even happy to fix that or this bug. And that's exactly what we need right now. Right now, it's better to have 3, 4, 5 really enthusiastic people who are going to stick with us no matter what, and want to contribute and collaborate every day. Is it better at this point than to have like 100 people who are trying to contribute all at once? Because at this stage, like I said in the beginning, the main thing I wanted to accomplish was getting that feedback to get to the production ready stage. And I'm expecting that once it's production ready, that will also create another new marketing opportunity where we can put some more blog posts out there. And like it says in the slides, I'll also be on another podcast tomorrow. So I'm expecting that in response to those, there will be kind of some renewed interest of people who might have seen Meltano over the last month, tried it out, saw that it wasn't quite there yet. But I think they will be pleasantly surprised by the progress that has been made over the last month or so, especially if we fast forward 1 week into the future when some of this production ready stuff will actually land. And then I'm expecting that out of these people who come back and see it another time, a larger amount of them will convert not just into trying it out once and then giving us feedback in Slack, but also actually trying it out, trying to deploy it, and then thinking, hey, this is pretty cool, let's contribute back. So that's why my priorities right now are first getting it to production readiness, because we have enough people contributing and giving feedback already to get there. And once that's done, I'll be focusing on getting actual more contributions to on the one hand, the kind of ecosystem of known to work with Meltano Singer taps and targets, as well as the actual CLI and the UI themselves. But I think we shouldn't underestimate that, of course, the Meltano CLI and UI have been almost 2 years in the making. So it's actually really feature complete. And the fact that a number of these people have actually been able to just get to some amount of success with it already speaks to the fact that at this point, there might not be as much low-hanging fruit in terms of contributions as you would think, at least not on the side of locally running pipelines, which is what most of our users have been doing so far. And on the side of running them in production, like I mentioned, that's what I've kind of been doing myself based on the feedback. But then in the next stage, I expect that there will be more opportunity for people to come in and say like, wow, now that I've got this deployed in production and that I can actually see myself using this, now I'm going to go ahead and also contribute some, allocate some time to contributing and improving it together. So I've been super happy with the response over the last month, even though it hasn't necessarily resulted into the contributing numbers going up yet too much. But then again, the RFA collaboration, where they will be working on the the data pipeline management UI for Meltano. They're actually going to put 1.5 developers on the project for 2 months, which is really amazing for an open source project. And that will obviously be a significant amount of contribution to the project, and that will also count as far as the KPI is concerned, of course. But of course, we want a wider group of people contributing. But yeah, that's really the next stage.
Cool, awesome, and thank you for that super in-depth answer.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, of course, there's so few questions on the list that I'm also taking it as an opportunity to give some more context, just based on the direction your question was pointing in. But it looks like we got a new question in the meantime. Joe, would you like to verbalize it?
Yeah, Joe Fenter. I'm an ISR in the intelligence community team. So we've kind of been pulled into the deep end of the data science pool by some customers and partners. So we're a little new at this, but I was very interested in finding out how this new direction would help a GitLab user. We have lots of users in the community use this as part of their machine learning efforts. And so we don't have line of sight on all of the projects. Some of them are secret, but we know there are things like facial recognition, image and signal processing, and deep learning, and that type of thing. We know that DBT is probably a factor. We know there's been some work done on things like Kubeflow that I'm looking into right now, but where does Meltano fit into that, and what would you recommend as far as how to engage and really leverage this?
Yeah, absolutely. So first, just to be clear, and I say this as kind of a, I say this every time in these meetings, GitLab is not currently supposed to be selling or recommending Meltano in any way, shape, or form. We should approach it as just another open source project that happens to have someone work on it that is funded by, sponsored by GitLab, and that's me right now. But it's a separate open source project. It's being built by the community, and it might take a couple of years until it's really something that GitLab will see as a marketable product that we can actually sell to our customers. But it does, of course, solve a problem that some of our customers might be having if they are comfortable using open source software, and with all the caveats that come with that, like limited support, higher amount of bugginess, and all these various factors. But if customers are in a situation where they have data in various places and they want to centralize it into a data warehouse, that's exactly the piece of the data lifecycle puzzle that we are currently focusing on with Meltano. Most GitLab customers right now are probably using some commercial off-the-shelf software to solve that problem, and Meltano attempts or intends to offer an open source alternative that over time will grow to be competitive, truly competitive on the fronts of quality, reliability, stability, and also offering of the supported data sources and data destinations as well. So if you're finding that customers have a problem specifically on the front of getting all of their data from the various sources into a data warehouse, you can at least float the idea like, hey, Meltano is being sponsored by GitLab. You might want to give this a try, but it's really just one part of that cycle, and not necessarily where the most complicated or most challenging problems exist when you're talking about data science or facial recognition or other kinds of artificial intelligence. But yeah, if they are interested in open source and they're interested in seeing what GitLab is working on the side that might turn into another GitLab-sized business a few years from now, then they can definitely check Meltano out. But the point at which we would start recommending it to customers of that size is still a couple of years away. Right now, we are explicitly looking for the smaller parties that can also afford to actually be involved with the open source project, instead of just treating it like a project built by another organization that they are only end users of. Right now, the only people who can really find success with Meltano are the people who are also capable of really helping themselves when they find bugs, or helping themselves when something's unclear, and then when they need to fix something or debug something. The amount of support they can get at this moment is just whatever they can find in the Slack workspace, and whoever are in there, myself and some other community members who are able to help out.
Okay, great. That's very helpful. Thank you.
Cool. All right, I think that's it as far as questions are concerned. It's been a really great month in the life of Meltano. I've been having a great time. I've been super happy with the response, and it's been really inspiring to see that the kind of vision and direction has resonated with so many people. So I'm excited to give more of these updates over the next couple of months, and hopefully we'll see Meltano getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and closer to that date at which GitLab will actually be able to start selling it, Joe. We'll get there at some point. All right, thanks for your time, everyone, and have a great rest of your Wednesdays.